in the capital city of the Kingdom of Riestais, in the Valencia Palace. One of the rooms had a kind of heat typical of the number of people gathered inside. Though that number was not high by any means, the room wasn't spacious either. The point was, the people in that room were so serious and occupied with their tasks that they had begun to raise the temperature of the room bit by bit. In the center of the room sat a rectangular meeting table, and situated on the most important seat in the room was Rampasa III. Seated to his right was the second prince, Zanak, and the rest of the seats had been filled by the kingdom's courtiers and ministers. Due to the fact that they were all advanced in years, if you were to take a look around the room, all you would see were white hair on white heads and shiny bald heads. If this was a normal situation, everyone except the king would have stood up to pay their respects, and then properly initiate the meeting. This was the protocol after all, but that was not what had happened. Each one of them had a cup filled with tea in front of them, signifying the potential length of this meeting. After confirming that everybody had received the materials they had prepared, Zanak said loudly, "Let's start the court meeting then. The topic of this meeting will be the declaration of war we have received from the Sorcerer's Kingdom." He had used a term as intense as declaration of war, in hopes that everyone would treat this meeting with the gravity it deserves. The truth was, the white-haired interior minister, who was around the age of his father, had the most displeased expression out of them all. It seemed that he was deeply anxious about the emergency. Zanak took a stealthy glance at the sight of his father's face. He was worried the most about his father's judgment. Was his father still capable of fully understanding how dangerous the situation could be, and take appropriate actions against it? He probably had some convictions against the Sorcerer King who had killed that guy. He had heard that after his father received news of the warrior Captain Gazastronov's death, he was shaken to his core and couldn't think straight. After it was explained to him how resurrection was not possible, he flew into a rage that had never been seen before. Zanak bore witness to it all as he was there with his father when it occurred. Since then, his father appeared to have aged quite significantly. He had lost all motivation and was as lifeless as a mannequin constructed out of flesh and bone. Would his father, who had been traumatized this much, be able to make a calm judgment against his sworn enemy, the Sorcerer's Kingdom? It'll be up to me then. Zanak felt uneasy, so he took a peek at the ministers. The topic of this meeting was something that was delivered to them days ago by an envoy from the Sorcerer's Kingdom, an official document that bore the royal seal of the Sorcerer's Kingdom. The content of the document read: a grain convoy meant to serve as humanitarian aid from the Sorcerer's Kingdom to the Holy Kingdom had been taken by force by a citizen of the kingdom. We deem it a hostile action against the Sorcerer's Kingdom, and hereby declare war on your country. The document also bore the seals of other countries that approved of the Sorcerer's Kingdom's actions. As of now, the envoy was staying within the capital, waiting to deliver the kingdom's response letter back. Given that this was an official communication between countries through documents, it would not have been unusual to give the other side a week or two to respond. Even then, for them to reach consensus on a response, finish their preparations, complete investigations, etc. would probably take them more time than they have on hand, even if they were to rush through every process. I'm terribly sorry, because we have had to investigate 2 of the 6 seals on the document from the envoy. It took us quite a bit of time. The one who had lowered his head was the Minister of Foreign Affairs, who was also the Minister of Seals, and was in charge of the investigation over the seals, approving of the Sorcerer's Kingdom's decision. The ones we were certain of before were the 4 from the Sorcerer's Kingdom, the Empire, the Draconic Kingdom, and the Holy Kingdom, correct? The Minister of Foreign Affairs nodded in response to the Minister of Finance's question. That is correct. Of the 2 remaining, one was from the Dwarven nation. Though we had identified the design as Dwarven, the seals still had some variations compared to the ones on the documents we've had from them from 2 centuries ago. After we received the assistance from Reeb Lumbershire with the investigation, we found a similar seal, so we judged that it was probably a remake of the original after a certain year. The other seal, the one that was next to the Holy Kingdoms, appeared to be the seal of the one they called the Faceless one. They placed an individual's stamp alongside the seals of state. The Minister of Military Affairs was in total disbelief. He was the youngest of the ministers. Both him and Zanak lowered the average age of the room by quite a lot. With that said, he was already over 40. His appearance did not do his rank of the Minister of Military Affairs justice. He was skinny, weak, and had a face that suggested he was neurotic. He seemed more like a financial personnel than a military one. His relationship with Gazif had not been great, or rather, he had deliberately flaunted his dislike of him, so he was not heavily relied upon by Rampasa, and had been absent from court meetings quite frequently. The lack of contact between them made Zanak unaware of his capabilities. However, since Markir even had praised his abilities to Zanak, he should be someone who could earn his keep at the very least. No matter what he was like as a person, he should at least be competent, right? No, if he wasn't at least competent he wouldn't have made it as a minister. It appears as though the Minister of Military Affairs is not too familiar with this matter. Usually, when the Holy Kingdom applies their national seal on a document, their high priestess would also stamp on the seal of their temple. This must be something similar to that. So they're trying to send the message that the Faceless One had already overtaken the authority of their religious institutions, or that she has authority above that of their current religious institutions. Your servant believes that to be the case, Your Majesty. The document we received for the current Holy King's coronation still had the seal of their temple, so it appears that she had begun rapidly consolidating power right after that event. So even though we had never seen the stamp of this Faceless One and could not confirm its validity, since it was stamped next to the national seal of the Holy Kingdom, we could only assume that to be the case. Other than the Council State and the Theocracy, most countries have approved of and joined the Sorcerer's Kingdom's condemnation of the kingdom. This wasn't subterfuge by the Sorcerer's Kingdom, but the truth. Yes, Your Majesty. His father let out a tired sigh. Has the Draconic Kingdom also bent their knees to the Sorcerer's Kingdom? We can't be certain, Your Majesty, because we have yet to receive intel on what had happened in the Draconic Kingdom. Perhaps they had fallen prey to some honeyed words, or perhaps they simply felt that there was more to gain by siding with the Sorcerer's Kingdom than siding with us. The Draconic Kingdom was probably only endorsing the Sorcerer's Kingdom's actions, and was not participating in the war itself. Is that so? I understand, Minister of Foreign Affairs. Thank you for your hard work. Now then. Interior Minister, how many of those within the kingdom believe in the contents of this document? Yes. Though we're not too sure about the entirety of the kingdom, about 7/10 of those within the court believe this to be a ploy of the Sorcerer's Kingdom. About 1/10 of us believe that it was done by highwaymen, that part of the peasantry that would be boorish and foolish enough to do such a thing. The remaining 2/10 believe that this could be the plot of a third nation. If it was a plot, their goal would most likely be to weaken the kingdom and the Sorcerer's Kingdom, or to simply disrupt the peace between the Sorcerer's Kingdom and the kingdom. If that was the case, it has to be the Council State and the Theocracy. Your Majesty, I believe that conclusion to be too rash. There's also the possibility that the Empire is plotting to overturn its status as a vassal state. After all, if it was the Knights of the Empire, they could probably easily charge and overwhelm a convoy. That would not be possible. The incident happened on kingdom soil. Did our investigations not reveal that there were tens of men? Even if it was the Empire or the Council State and the Theocracy, there would be no way they could bring so many soldiers onto our soil behind our backs. Or maybe, they had help from within. Perhaps they had hired bandits within the kingdom. Mercenaries would also be an option. The specifics do not matter. What matters is that we as a nation had committed a mistake. The Minister of Military Affairs asserted that it was impossible for this to have been a plot that had been executed by soldiers foreign to the kingdom. Everyone knew how hard he had worked to maintain the public order, which had almost collapsed within the kingdom after that battle. He had proven his aptitude through the debacle. Perhaps that was why he was so confident in his own judgment. It would have been hard with bandits, but I still hope that we could absorb some mercenaries into our ranks, but we simply do not have the capital to do so. Are you saying that our finances are not in order? I did not say that at all. But you implied it. Minister of Finance, Minister of Military Affairs, please stop arguing. We do not have time for that. The two lowered their heads upon hearing the king speak. The Minister of Military Affairs continued to speak to a now silent room. But, I have no doubt that this is some sort of a plot by someone. I have testimony from the guards at the gates that the caravan was flying the Sorcerer's Kingdom's flag, and had a pretty impressive security detail when they left the capital. Most of the kingdom's people knew of the massacre the Sorcerer's Kingdom had committed on the Cat's Plains, so no one within the kingdom would dare to provoke such a terrifying country. If they had to deduce who was behind all of this, there was only one country that checked all the boxes. The Sorcerer's Kingdom. Everything made sense once they considered it as a self-orchestrated, self-performed plot. They probably had ordered the caravan to burn or dispose of its cargo, or maybe they plainly did not load those wagons up in the first place, and made up the excuse that they were attacked by some non-existent entity. It was hard to imagine a more plausible explanation. Zanak, though not much time has passed, how much progress have you made on your investigations? Actually, I have already found out who had started this incident. The courtiers all had shocked expressions.